Without further ado, I'm going to get started. Uh, you know, uh, since our beginning in the Native Plant Society, we've always been a science-based conservation organization. We've always been the voice or had tried to be the voice for native plants, both in our locally, regionally, and nationally. And we've had a great deal of influence across the spectrum on that. So that, and we've just done we've got a great history about all that. So I want to share some of that tonight, what advocacy is and some of the things that we work on. You can see the dates there from 1996 to 225. These are the things that, again, from our beginnings, we've been a conservation advocacy group, and we continue to do good things. But, when you think about, I do a lot of public speaking, I do a lot of classes and stuff, and I guess I do probably 20, 30 talks a year, different types of organizations and networking and coalition building, and it's a lot of things. But why do we do this? And why does it matter? It matters that we have a living earth ecology. And those are three words, but they are powerful words. Living earth ecology. They mean something. And why do we do this? And why does it matter? Sustainability for our children's future can be essentially boiled it down. What are we leaving behind? What is the legacy that we leave? And how can we at least leave this world in a better place than we found it? Rudy Menke was a great friend of mine, and we'll talk about him in a bit more and later. But he said we got to leave the world at least as good as we found it. And so that's always where I come from. And so there's these ethical questions that we have to ask ourselves, and so why should we care about the environment? Are we the most important beings on the planet? Are we just one of millions of different forms of life? And do we have the ethical obligation to pass along to future generations the extraordinary natural world in which conditions at least as good as we inherited? And Aldo Leopold is a hero of mine. And I think our heroes say a lot about who we are and what we practice. Uh, as a uh, as a retired landscape architect, landscape designer, environmental designer, these are the things that I carried through my career, and it's been the hallmark of what I try to do. So again, our mission: protect, restore, and educate. Sometimes our groups and nonprofits have a mission statement, and sometimes they stray from that mission statement. But the Native Plant Society, I'm proud to say, we have never strayed from our mission statement: protect, restore, and educate. And so all throughout this presentation, that will be coming out. Just as you can see the picture on the right, this is why it matters. We were established in 1996 as a 501c3s, 7 chapters statewide now, 1,300 members plus, and 500 in the upstate. We own and manage properties. We were a founding member of the National Native Plant Council. We were a founding member of the Southeast Exotic Plant Council. And we are been with a partnership with South Carolina Botanical Garden to do the Native Plant Certification Program. And that has gone on now, I think it's 6 or 8 years. I can't remember exactly how long we've been doing it, but it's been a very successful program. And so again, these are just a few of the things that we have in our bailiwick here, and I'm going to share a lot more about all the things that we do. So, leadership and legacy, and leadership matters. And the legacy that we leave behind, just like I've already alluded to. And what it requires is generational leadership. And so in the slide here, you can see our past and our current leadership, and then and of course we've got lots of new leaderships across the state. But these are the guys here. If you can see in the middle there on with the stick, that's Dr. Bill Stringer. He helped co-found the organization with me. I'm on the right, and Dan Whitten is our current state president. Jeff Jackson is in the picture, and then in the far left is one of our former presidents, Jeff Beecham. And again, here we are planning it out and figuring out how we move this organization forward. again, here we are at Parks Mill with Frank Holloman and Bill Stringer talking about the map of the Parks Mill property that we own down there, and renovating that old mill there. And Dr. Stringer and Bill Stringer's been down there with a gang of people every other Thursday, I think, and down there working to restore that mill, and it's really working out great. But this is why it matters. We can talk about all the other things, but really it comes down to, what are we doing for plants and how we're speaking for the plants that can't speak for themselves. And so here's a beautiful slide of the Rocky Shoulder Spider Lily at Parks Mill. That's a native plant study. We don't own this property, but we help acquire the property, and we also are the managing partner to maintain that. And again, Lisa Matthews Memorial Bay. When we acquired this 52-acre bay down in Bamberg, South Carolina, it had one of the largest populations of Oxypis cambia, Cambia's drawfort, where you can see the little white plant in the foreground in the picture. And that was one of the largest populations in the world. And I think it was around 60, maybe 80 plants there. And we've been restoring this for the last 15 years plus. And now we have, I think the last time we did a species count in there, we are up over 12,000 plants in that site. So good things that we do. So let's think about what we do, and in a more direct way about issues, advocacy, and education. I've been the advocacy chair for the organization for, I guess, 20, 25 years or longer. It's always been a constant for me, and I think it's always been a constant for the Native Plant Society to make a difference. So conservation advocacy, it matters. Native plants play a critical role in ecosystem services. And this term, ecosystem services, is what will nature give you that you don't have to pay for? Clean water, clean air, quality of life. So these are all the things that native plants, and they play a critical role in these ecosystem services. Where land meets water, native plants hold it together and clean the water. All things are connected. Native plants define our conservation values and require that we engage, educate, and advocate. And another Leopold quote there, I get a litter of this whole program with Leopold quotes, because again, I think we have to see ourselves for where we are in time. When we see the land as a community, we feel like we belong, and we use it and love and respect it as such. And so I think sometimes we talk about individual native plants, but understanding plant communities is a big part of it. So a little bit of history of the Native Plant Society as far as advocacy goes. We do public comments, we do agency advocacy, working with our state and national agencies. We work with building coalitions all across the state. Because the Native Plant Society, we can't do it all, and we need partners, and we need to build coalitions. And from the get-go on the Native Plant Society, one of my missions was to build coalitions, to build partnerships, and again, to build that legacy, which we're talking about. We've written many, many letters to editors. We've written letters of standing for legal issues. And some of our legal challenges have been very successful, such as the Francis Marion overburning in the Francis Marion. Dr. John Brubaker led the charge on that, and we were successful in getting burning in the Francis Marion as it should be. And now the Francis Marion is, as a result of that, of our efforts there, is a true ecosystem that we should be proud of. We work with DNR. I served on the Heritage Trust Advisory Committee for natural resources for 9 years. Our partnerships with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, with our native grass seed collection that we did for 13 years or so, with Bill Stringer leading the way, changed the federal agency from using exotics to native grasses and forbs. Big effort. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we've worked with them on threatened endangered species lists and things like that. State parks, we've collaborated with state parks all across the state, including helping with the new Black River State Park that is going in Williamsburg and Georgetown County. We work with the Nature Conservancy as well, and helping get places like 9 times and things like that bought and protected and preserved. We're about coalition building, as I said, Upstate Forever, Coastal Conservation League. You can read the names there. And, so we've continued to work and build these coalitions. And we were one of the founding members of the SC Rivers Forever. And so we do work a lot on water issues. And I'll go back there to that slide. You can see, and everyone in that slide is part of the in the audience with the Reedy River Water Quality Group, which I have continued to serve on for well over a decade. And so here we are at the Reedy River Water Quality Group, mapping out the future of the Reedy River and the Saluda River Basin. Again, some of our partnership list here, you can see Natural Land Trust has been just a stalwart and for us with Frank Holloman and Max Stone leading the way there with their acquisition of properties. And then we were helping with inventories and things like that. So it's really a true partnership. Southern Environmental Law Center, again, we couldn't be where we are without them and their ability to help us with the legal things as we navigate our way through things. Upstate Forever has been a long-term partner for us. Lake Conisty, Friends of the Reedy, you can read the list there. It's quite an extensive list there, and these are just our local partners. And so it's not, and then again, we're still forming relationships with REWA. We'll potentially might move our greenhouse out there. Trees Upstate has been a great friend as well. So you can, and then of course we're continuing to explore new ways. We work with the South Carolina Botanical Garden to advance native plants and the statewide and regionally. So the Upstate Coalition is about getting things done. Just in this past year, I think it was our most successful year ever in conservation advocacy. As part of the Reedy River Water Quality Group, I proposed a 100-foot buffer along all streams and rivers in Greenville County 8 years ago. Well, it took me 8 years. It took us 8 years with our coalition to get this passed, and we did that this time last year. Unified Development Ordinance in Greenville County to help preserve natural places and natural things. Greenville County is down to 38% canopy. We have to do something, and mass grading is off the chain. So we stepped up, we advocated, we showed up at every council meeting, we talked to the council people, and we got them to pass this. And then, of course, City of Greenville, native plants and new design standards on the new, now everybody in Greenville that has new designs coming in, they have to have 50% native plants. And you can see in the slides here, this is our coalition partners, Southern Environmental Law and, Upstate Forever Crowd, and Save Our Saluda, Friends of the Reedy River, all of our partners are right there. And again, we show up, we get it done. So, and we preserve legacies like Glassy Mountain, they're going to put a development up there on top of this beautiful place with all these rare plants that we know up there. And, and we all showed up, and me and Frank worked with the local landowners around the mountain there that was really concerned about it. And we kind of helped them navigate their way through this so we could get that development stopped. And so now Glassy Mountain looks just like that. And as I mentioned, maybe that I currently serve on the Saluda River Basin Council. I have a 4-year commitment for that, and we're navigating how much water we're going to have 50 years from now, and what that water quality is going to look like. So that's a 4-year commitment. I'm in year 2, and we continue to work across the state with SC Water Commission to navigate how we take care of our water for the next 50 to 100 years. And again, partnerships matter. Here I'm with the Friends of the Reedy River, Save Our Saluda, and we're working on riparian education up on Terry Creek, up in northern Greenville County. And this was a roaded out bank, and we showed how you could restore these banks back by putting in riparian buffers. And here I am speaking to a group about riparian buffers and native plants. And again, here we are again with cleanups in the Reedy River, and again, Native Plant Society being there along with our friends of the Reedy River, and the hundreds of people that come out and help clean up the river, and being able to talk about native plants and point those things out and why they're important. And we talk about environmental education, but it is the foundation of everything. Educate, educate, educate. Here we are, Dan and Whitney and I were over at the Environmental Educators Conference in Spartanburg this past summer, and we were doing what we need to, what we do, and this is what we do: advocate, educate, and educate the educators. And in 2003, I was given Environmental Educator of the Year award by the State Teachers Association, and so I'm real proud of receiving that. But that don't mean we stopped. I mean we just keep going. Um, so one of our big things as we began the Plant Society is that you had a scattering of conservation groups like the Sierra Clubs and everything, but we really didn't have a hub from which all of the conservation groups, nonprofits and grassroots organizations could rally around and work more as a unit rather than isolated individual conservation organizations. So Conservation Voters of South Carolina was formed, and we were one of the founding people there as that began to take hold. And now that's grown into 40 plus organizations, and we all work together, and we work with on legislation as well as conservation issues that affect our state and our regions. And so here we are at a Conservation Voters meeting, setting the agenda. Every year we have several ongoing meetings throughout the year, and I have Zoom calls every month for energy and water and trash and a lot of other things we work on, wildlife habitat, etc. So here we are setting the agenda. And again, I can't say enough about the good people and the young people that are coming on and making a really huge difference in our efforts in setting the agenda. And I want you to take a look at this list right here. This is our partners roll call. And if you look at this list, I'm not going to go down and read them all, but I just want you to take a look at our influence over and our partners on this roll call. We have our hands in a lot of different things and with a lot of different organizations, and all of them look to the Native Plant Society to be the catalyst and a voice for change, as well as protection, as back to our mission: protect, restore, and preserve. So, and I like to say we're saving our natural resources one oyster at a time. So every year, March, we always have a lobby day, and here we are at the lobby day where we're down there rubbing elbows with the legislators and trying to get them to see things our way. And then in that evening, we all had to meet out at the 701 Whaley Street and have a big oyster roast. And you can get a lot of things done around an oyster table. And so I think we've done real well with that. And so it's about building coalitions for success. And so some of these pictures you see of where we're building these coalitions, we're building these teams, we're working with others, and to advance the message of native plants and the role that we play. And here we are at a CBS retreat this past fall. Again, I was leading the field trips and led a couple of other things there with them. Again, taking conservation folks out that they're really big into conservation, but they might not know a whole lot about native plants. And so my job is to educate them about the plants, but also work with them on our other agendas. So you can see our agenda here for 2025 is isolated wetlands, Carolina bays, protections, regulatory rollbacks. We're always playing defense. Native plants, advocating for native plants on state properties and highways and wildlife corridors. I helped co-author a proviso that is now in front of the state legislators for all state properties to have at least 50% native plants on all their grounds. And we're working through that right now. We work on smart growth issues and land use like you saw with the Unified Development Ordinance, but we're going to try to do this more statewide. We're working on surface water and statewide water planning, and we're working on microplastics and microplastics pollutions, energy renewables, and holding PESC accountable. So again, it's all about preserving our legacy. When you think about the botanical world and the botanical universe, it doesn't get anywhere more special than South Carolina. And so here we are working. We've always supported South Carolina Conservation Land Bank, And we continue to do that each and every year because we have to always kind of fight for funding for this. But here we are at Congaree Creek Heritage Preserve, Taylor Tract, where we got 644 acres of critical habitat protected. And again, it takes a village, and we all do it together. Again, we work on state and local issues, and again, practicing advocacy and education. You can see some of the issues that we worked on statewide this past year. We worked on crafting a PFAS letter with Southern Environmental Law Center, sign on there. CAFCO, which is hog farms and chicken farms, litter runoff from those places. Again, thing I'm most proud of, and we'll talk a bit more about it in a minute, was Lewis Ocean Bay. We helped submitting FOIA documents to the county council down in Horry County to help get that protected and stop a bad development that would have destroyed the bay. We were also working on delisting dwarf heartleaf, an issue that we continue to work on with Frank Holloman leading the charge on that. Clean Water Act, constantly defending that, and the DHEC recent split, which is now DES. We've been forming relationships and partnerships with them. And in Spartanburg County, we did litigate that issue, which was part of the dwarf heartleaf issue there. And then, of course, we worked on the riparian buffer issue, which I've already mentioned. The Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve was a conservation effort. You can see it's one of the largest Carolina bays. It was critical habitat for Venus flytrap. It is a fire-maintained ecology. The issues were Conway Medical proposed to build a hospital, which would limit or eliminate burning. So I presented at the second reading, the FOIA documents. Then it took a year for them to have the third reading. And then when they had the third reading, they decided that they were going to sell the land. They were going to build a hospital on to DNR, which they should have done in the first place. But again, it takes effort. It takes effort in showing up. It's a 5-hour drive to go down there for 15 minutes. But that's what has to be done. And so I'm real proud of our effort on that, along with the 100-foot buffer in Greenwood County and the UDO, and then getting this stopped. It was really a good, successful year. So here we are on record, Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve, going down there and protecting our Venus flytraps and protecting that bay. Again, we couldn't have done it without partners. Coastal Conservation League, our new Grand Strand chapter down there, the Native Plant Society was front and center, and they were all the way along the effort, and they were a brand new chapter, and they showed up, and it was great. So, and again, why it matters. Lewis Ocean Bay was just wonderful. And here we are with Waccamaw and the tribe there on the grounds with state parks and thinking about other ways we can be creative about how we bring the tribes back into the 21st century and teach them their native plant history and culture. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Another issue that we worked on this past year that I mentioned already, I want to dive into a little bit more, is the delisting of dwarf heartleaf and Hexasilus naniflora. You know, again, you can read the issues here. It was, Spartanburg County ordinances that they went against their own ordinance, and DHEC rubber stamped this thing with a 38-acre RV camp in Campobello with no sewer and no water, and they were going to approve this. So we filed suit on this, and we stood up, we showed up, we do what we always do, and show up and speak and be the voice for native plants. So here, Dan and I and Frank are there at the courthouse, in the courtroom, and getting ready to say our piece and protect those plants. And again, here I'm at the statewide water conference this past fall, where I was a speaker there. Again, speaking for native plants and speaking for our environment. And here are some of the speaking things that I've typically do. I've done a lot this past year. The Native Plant Certificate Program, I've already mentioned. I'm one of the instructors there. I teach a sustainability and landscape design class. Earth Day Memorial with Jim Fowler. That was a great day. The Upstate UMNA, the Master Gardeners, Soil and Water. We spoke there, did some of the code events out in public with that. The River Water Quality Group I've mentioned. Colorway speakers. I nominated Richard Prochet for the Tom Dodd Jr. Award, which with the Colorway Native Plant Conference, and he received that. And then we worked at the Savers Lunar Annual Meeting. We spoke there, and then again at the Statewide Water Conference. And then I spoke at the Belfast this past year, and that was just really a high point for me in my life and my career. And there I am with Dan, getting ready to do the talk, and I spent a lot of my life at Joe Casey. But here we are again, just some snapshots of some of the things we just talked about, the Botanical Garden Native Plant Certificate Program. Here I am getting ready to give a presentation this past fall. And if you haven't signed up for the certificate program, if you haven't, it's really a gem. If you want to learn native plants, the certificate program is the way to go. And you get a really good world-class education. And then advocacy is always where we go. No matter where you go, you have to be there. And here I am at the South Atlantic Region National Garden Club in 2024 convention. I was the opening speaker for that event as well. It was a great honor to be there with the garden clubs and really spread the word and spread the message. The 6 Mile Native Plant Jubilee we did this past year. Again, we were a big supporter of that and showed up and had a booth there, a little table. And I was the speaker, and John Storm, one of our members, he also spoke there and did a great job. And again, so come back, circle here, the conservation leadership committees that we all serve on. I won't go back through these individually, but I will say that I've helped form a tribal working group. We were a founder member of that, and we're going to show some slides here in a minute about that, where we meet quarterly and next week I'll be at a signing of a treaty with South Carolina and all the tribes in the state. And I'm real proud that we'll be able to push this across. We've been going back to the tribes now, at the PD tribe, the Waccamaw tribe, the Winya tribe, and teaching classes. We've been averaging about 3 classes per year, reteaching them back their native plant history and their culture. And we're also helping form the Upstate Invasive Plant Coalition. And so again, all the conferences that I seem to wind up at, the annual retreat, the Colorway Conference, we've been both awards and speakers there. We attended and spoke at the joint North Carolina Invasive Plant Conference, statewide conference I've mentioned, and some of these other things I've already mentioned. And here is Chief Parr on the right there. I nominated him for a Lifetime Achievement Award for Conservation, and he received that award in 2023. And then here are some slides of our tribal working group on the Black River. And that was a great, great day. And to see these Native Americans to be heard and understood and be able to reconnect them with their land and their native plants and how they use plants for food and clothes and medicine and stuff. They've forgotten a lot of this stuff. So it's our mission to help them recapture some of this. And they are grateful for our help. And I'm grateful to the friendships that I've made. So here we are, where we get this re-education with the PD tribe. And here you can see we begin to lay out things on a table there and talk about these plants and how they benefit people through herbal remedies and that type of thing. And here we are with Chief Parr, Vice Chief Randolph Small, and myself. We were there, one of our classes, as we were just beginning this process. April Punselin was a great a botanist. It was a great help. She's been a stalwart along the way. She knows her stuff, and her classes online, herbal classes online using native plants are off the chain. She's the best I've ever seen with it. So if you hadn't seen her stuff, you need to go there. And here we are I was invited to attend the Thanksgiving event for the tribes, and I was really a guest of honor there with that. Here I'm at the Waccamaw tribes doing planning with them as they begin to figure out, they got a property, but they don't have anything on it, and try to help them plan forward. And it's a great, great event. And here we are at the Green Tie Award, where Chief Parr received his award for a lifetime achievement there. It was a great day for conservation. It was a great day for Native Americans. It was a great day for the Native Plant Society. And then this past year, I received the Lifetime Achievement for Conservation as well in 2024. And here I am with my family and my staff at Earth Design and my grandson. And there I am with John Tynan, a great friend for a long, long time, holding the award. Quite an honor, but it's really, even though I received the honor, it's really an honor about the Native Plant Society, because again, everything that I've done over the last 25, 30 years has been about the Native Plant Society. And here we are doing education outreach down in Anderson, the Soil and Water event down there. There's Chris Sermons, our Upstate Vice President. Chris has been with us since our beginning, basically, and he's one of our great native plant folks that help us out so much. Here we are down in Bucksport, which is down near Anor, South Carolina, working to install a rain garden with African Americans as well as Native Americans. And again, building these coalitions and partnerships and making lasting things that really make a difference, I think is really part of our mission and what we do. And again, what we do, this plant cell continues to grow, but it doesn't grow by itself. It grows with leadership, and it grows with a commitment and people showing up to do good things for the right reasons at the right time. And I can't say enough good things about the value of the plant cell and providing us the resources that we need to make all this stuff happen. We attend the Native Plant Conference, the Cullowhee Native Plant Conference every year. You can see some of our members there every year. The group gets a little bigger, a little different, but every year we're up there. And I can say that without a doubt, this is the greatest Native Plant Conference in the world. And if you haven't been, please make plans to go the third week in July, but sign up early. And it's my word to wise on that. Great word. We are also part of the South Carolina, North Carolina Joint Conference Invasive Plants. That conference is coming up next month, and we are one of the sponsors again with this conference. And again, we can't just talk about natives. We have to talk about invasives because they go hand in hand. And here we are with our state botanist, Keith Bradley, Heritage Preserve up at Blackjack Oak Heritage Preserve, and working on species, but also educating and advocating as we always do. And again, I've been working on forming an Upstate Invasive Plant Coalition. It's been back and forth. It hasn't moved quickly or as far as I would like for it to, but I'm not going to give up on it because it's too much at stake and we have to do it. But we have a good set of partners and coalition building as we see there on the screen. And so I'm just really excited about what this is going to bring for us in the future. But I need some help on it. But don't make no mistake about it, we will stick with it. And this is one of the things that we've been doing at the Upstate Chapter for several years now, led by Janie Marlowe and Dr. Bill Stringer, is controlling pig buttercup in the Greenville Reedy River. We spend an average of $30,000 to $35,000 a year paying trained people to come in and attack this plant. This plant is, we have an opportunity to stop this plant before it spreads and gets uncontrollable. As you can see, it takes over the floodplains. And it has a nice flower, it's real pretty, but it will take over and it will destroy habitat for our natives. So we spend a lot of money doing this every year. In March, April, and May, February, March, April is the months that we have to go after this plant because that's the only time it's visible. And here you can see how it takes over an area. And again, Janie Marlowe, one of our great members, she was the person that been championing this along with Dr. Stringer. And we hope that we can continue to carry this on year after year, seeking funding and making it happen. Again, riparian buffers, working with our coalition partners, Friends of the Reedy and others, we began to take these invasives off the river corridors. Here's a site that had full of invasives. We removed the invasives and we began to plant it back with native plants. And so you can see the kind of the before and the middle and then the after. We're growing it back to health. And that's why I like to say we're growing it back to health. And again, we're always working on things. And so one of the Blackwell Heritage Preserve of Travelers Rest, Frank Holloman has been leading the charge on this with privet pools every year up there. This scene that you see there, that was full of privet. And volunteers got up there every January and February and pulled privet. But look what has happened since we pulled all that privet out. All these plants have come back, including dwarf heartleaf, in this site. So we're real proud of the effort. And again, it takes a lot. And so, this is why it matters. And this is what we do, why we do it, and why it matters. The Native Plant Society is a catalyst for protecting things, but we're also a catalyst for education and things. And so lastly, we look at why it matters. The children are our future, just like when we started this program. This is why it matters. We have to pass on a living legacy to our children. We have to educate them about native plants and invasives and the whole wildlife connections, et cetera. And we do this, and we continue to do this. And it's warms my heart that we can do this. And then advocacy and building new chapters. I want to make the announcement that we have recently successfully started a launch of a new PD chapter up in Florence. And here me and Dan is there's Dan, and we're in the room talking with these folks and getting them to sign up and do a good job of starting that chapter. And on the left, you can see where we're down in Savannah River chapter. A couple of weeks ago, we went down there to try to start this new chapter. And again, the Native Plant Society is a good organization, and we're growing, and we're continue to do good things. Again, it's all about leadership and appreciation. Again, here we're at the table, one of the tables of the Green Tie Award, and you can see us all smiling there. And there's Katie Ellis, which she was our state president for a good while, and so it was just a great day. And then lastly, but not leastly, I want to speak about Rudy Minke. Rudy Minke was supportive of the Native Plant Society from day one, and I can't tell you how many hours and hours I spent with Rudy just talking about things and just talking about the state of things. And as well as all his knowledge about the natural world, he was a humble man and loved to share and loved to teach, and so I think I've took a lot of inspiration from Rudy, that we all do have, and what leadership and legacy means. And so we're all very appreciative of the legacy that Rudy Minke has left behind. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Rick. That was awesome to hear everything that we've been doing to date, as well as some of the things that are coming up in 2025. So we just want to open the floor to questions. If anybody has a question for Rick, you could use the raise hand feature, which is in the react option in the Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. And if you just raise your hand, then I can call on you and you can unmute and you can speak, or you can type your question in the chat and I'll feel free to read it off for you and ask Rick. So if anyone has questions there, we can go ahead and start to take those. Not seeing anybody with their hands raised just yet, so we'll give folks a minute to think of their questions. I had a question for you, Rick, just while we're waiting. What are you feeling most excited for from an advocacy perspective for 2025?
Well, where I feel most excited about is seeing the young people coming along and leading the charge. Sometimes as you get a bit older here, you wonder where the next generation is coming from. Are they going to have the same values that you have? And so I'm really excited about as I interact with all the different organizations that we partner with, seeing the young people come up and take the mantle and take leadership roles, because this is what we need. And so that's what excites me the most, is seeing young people understand what conservation values are, and have the ethics that go behind it. It really comes back to ethics. I started with ethics in this program. I think land ethics is so important, and land ethic values, and those are easy things to say, but they're harder things to do. So I'm just really encouraged by that. And I guess I would say that the other thing is that for the first time, and I've been advocating for 25 years, is let's talk about water and how much about clean water and clean air and those type of things, because those things matter and native plants are at the heart of that. So those are things that have me going, excited that we're starting to have these conversations. It begins with conversations with everybody, including state legislatures, DNR agencies, et cetera, Army Corps of Engineers, you name it. And so I'm really excited that we're having these conversations. We've been behind the 8 ball with water in South Carolina for a good number of years, and like surface water withdrawal. And that is a big issue right now. So I'm excited about that. But mostly I'm excited that, that where we are with the society, is a growing organization. And with that growing organization, it requires leadership. We're all volunteers. And so I will send out the call for people that want to get involved and be with a great organization like ours and do something that really makes a difference. Then I would say, call me, sign me up. And so we'll put you to work. And
Yeah,
but it's a labor of love what we do, and you build a lot of great friendships in the process.
that's great. Thank you. Looks like Carson had his hand raised. Carson, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hey Rick,
Hey,
thank
Carl.
you so much for everything that you do. Um, so not so much a question, although I could pick your brain for a while, but I started with Greenville Water about 5 months ago, and you and I met at the Roan Mountain field trip last growing season, and I'm looking forward to the field trips this spring I want to attend. But I feel kind of sad I didn't hear Greenville Water's name on this presentation, and I'm not even sure. I know you got a lot on your plate, but if there ever is anything that you need or want from Greenville Water, I'd love to, meet up. And if you could come to North Saluda Watershed and shed some light on the botany that we have there, that would be amazing. So
Great.
I just wanted to say that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carson. Greenville Water is so important, and they're part of our Saluda River Basin Council. So that I mentioned serving on the Saluda River Basin Council, and the Greenville Water is there, and and Save Our Saluda is up there in northern Greenville County. Melanie Rubin is one of my great friends and great partners. So again, I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but Greenville Water is so important to manage, not just managing our water, make sure we have water to drink and bathe in, but being good stewards, because those watersheds up there, Greenville County has the only wholly protected watershed headwaters anywhere.
Right.
The reason Greenville has good water is because we protect our headwaters. And headwater protection is the key to having clean, viable water. And Greenville Water has done a great job of managing up there in that basin, and so that we'll have sustainably water for the future. And again, they've been good partners in our Saluda River Basin Council, and we continue to have dialogue and interchange about what is our water going to look like in the next 50 years.
Yep,
That's
that's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That is great to hear. All right, we had a couple questions come in the chat. I'm gonna ask a couple of those and then we'll come back to you, Robert, that has your hand up. So a couple folks ask about the name of the woman you mentioned who is the great herbal teacher. Someone I think answered, but if you want to just share a little bit more about April.
Yeah, April's been a presenter at our chapter. You can probably go back and see her presentation on our recordings. She was formerly with Fish and Wildlife, and now she started Wild Herb Academy, and that's her website, Wild Herb Academy. And I don't know how she makes a living, because she gives all of her information away. And but that's who she is and what she's about. Um, some people do things for money, some people do things for whatever, but she does it because it's in her heart, and that comes through with everything she does. And so if you get a chance to see her podcast or anything that she does out there with Wild Herb Academy, you'll be blessed.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, Robert, that has your hand up. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, moved to Travelers Rest about a year ago, trying to get accustomed to the scene there after spending a 50-year career in Florida doing environmental restoration at a research nursery where I grew 60 or 70 different types of plants, mostly stuff I couldn't get from the industry, oddball things that nobody would grow. And my question is, now that you're having some successes in mandating higher and higher percentages of natives into approved projects, is the nursery industry able to keep up with that, or is it are your designs being kind of dictated by what you can get rather than what you would like?
That's a great question. Very good question. As a landscape architect, and I founded my practice on using native plants and that kind of thing, long before people knew what they were. It wasn't a household word. So it's always been a challenge about where do you get the plants? And so you are partly dictated about what you can get and the quality of what you can get. But I would say that we've come a long way with that, particularly on the wholesale level, but not on the retail level. So, there are a lot of native plant sources out there on the wholesale level, but the retail out there, the retail box stores and nurseries and out there haven't really gotten with the program quite yet. And so that's one of the issues that we find is that getting these plants more available and more plants out there. But not only just native plants, just any native plant, but trying to promote and foster local native genotypes and having seed sources that are local rather than if you buy a seed source from, say, Ernst Seed Company, which is a native seed firm. Most of those species are from Pennsylvania, North Carolina, but not from here. So we're going to try to advocate for getting local seeds. And so I'm working currently with the South Carolina Botanical Garden, Martin Hamilton over there, and we're looking at seed banking and having co-ops statewide that can grow native plants for seed increase. And so this is a new initiative that we're trying to launch here in South Carolina. I'm going to be attending a seed bank conference in Tucson, Arizona in February, learning what I can there and seeing how we can bring that back to South Carolina and put it into action. Another thing that we're trying to do now is use the Clemson Extension Service as an outreach for native plant education statewide. So every county extension agent will be a proponent of native plants, promoting native plants, and getting that supply for the consumers out there. And we have 2 plant sales a year, and those plant sales are huge, but that's just twice a year. And we do online sales as well, but we're just one thing. We're not selling the quantity that that you might need for a restoration project or a large scale project. So we're working on that, both ends of it. And it's always ongoing. Again, when I first started my business, there was only one person in the entire Southeast I could get native plants from. And then I began that's the reason I started the Native Plant Society, because I said, geez, if I'm going to do this, I need to do some education here. And so I need to make a living. And everybody said, you'll starve doing that. I said, well, I might. And but I stuck with it, and the Native Plant Society has been a catalyst, a vehicle basically to get there. But we got a long way to go with that. I would say we've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go, particularly with getting local genotypes available for people to purchase. And so we need all the help we can get on that. So if you'd like to get involved or be part of that movement and get on board, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rick. That was very thorough. A couple more questions in the chat here. Are there any plans or dates yet for privet poles and buttercup removal?
No. We did the privet pole that we had up at the Blackwell Heritage Preserve. Frank didn't do it this year. I think he's birding this year. So he's the leader on that. And with the fig buttercup thing, it's just too pervasive. You couldn't get it's hanging on the banks and stuff. It's just too you would never not be effective doing it. So what we've done with that, we have a company out of Tennessee that we pay that was trained to go do this. And we give them the maps, we show them where to go, and they go out and do it. And having 60, 70-year-old people with backpack sprayers climbing banks and stuff, that just didn't work.
Doesn't sound like a good idea.
We tried it.
Yeah.
Bill and Janie, I bet they were out there doing it. So, but we tried that. But so we spend the money doing it. But Big Buttercup is something you're not going to pull up, and you're only going to be able to see that plant between February, March, and then and when it comes May, that plant will totally disappear, and you won't even know that it was there. And and it's a highly invasive plant. And I was working with the North Carolina Town Garden up there. They have a huge infestation of the Chapel Hill, and it's about out of control up there.
Got it. Okay, another question here from the chat. Is there a leadership training program for young people?
Wow, that is a wonderful question. I think there's leadership training just by in the doing. Getting involved with nonprofit grassroots organization, rolling your sleeves up. There is no training. It's 80% showing up. Somebody said, well, Rick, you do all this stuff and you've done all these things. Well, it's 80% showing up. So show up and come join us. Friends of the Reedy River. I mentioned all those coalition partners up here in the local level. Friends of the Reedy River, Upstate Forever. All these folks have volunteer opportunities on their boards as well as committees and things that you can serve. And you learn by doing. So there's no training here. You learn by doing. And it doesn't matter what your level of expertise on plants or whether you know one plant or you don't know any at all. It doesn't take any of that. All it does is showing up and being willing to do it. And I like to say that we're a coalition of the willing, those that are willing to show up and willing to do things. And so if you're willing to do something and you want to get involved, give me a call.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about, I don't know if this, I don't know what young, the age range maybe was meant there, but like, young kids. So I think it's like their parents bringing them to certain events or whatever. But I know there's been some programming with schools. Maybe there was like a rain barrel project or something. I don't know if you don't recall if you talked about that, but
from the get-go, education. I was given the Environmental Educator Award in 2003 about taking this message to schools, taking the Aldo Leopold message to schools. We have the Sand County Almanac in 3 school districts, in grade school and middle school, teaching land ethic values. And so we do Boy Scouts, we do. And so we do lots of different ways where we're trying to reach the youngest and the most vulnerable. We've done mentor program for middle schools using native plants as part of the curriculum in the middle school to help them teach state standards. So we've been at the heart of education in South Carolina and still are. And I'm most proud of that in my career, that I've been able to take that and move that forward in a lot of different ways. I was in the grocery store just a few weeks ago, and some guy came up to me and said, I was in the 7th grade, and I remember you come to our class and teaching us about this stuff.
that's wonderful. Yeah.
So yeah, we've been at the heart of this for such a long time, and and it's not just me; it's a lot of other people as well. And again, you saw us with the environmental educator group back in the summer over there, me and Dan. And again, what were we doing? We were educating the educators, because that's what you have to educate the educators, not just the kids. You have to educate the educators. And again, our involvement with South Carolina Department of Education, Environmental Educators Group of South Carolina, has always been, we've been doing it for over 25 years. And so we're still there, and we haven't went anywhere. And we still do what we've always done. And you saw my picture with Rudy there. Rudy and I can't tell you all the things we went and did with environmental educators and of all ages and statewide.
That's great. All right, we've got one last question in the chat. I think we've got time for this one. So Helene destroyed so much of our mature hardwood forests in the upstate. What impact will that have on the small native plants of the undergrowth? What should we be doing to mitigate the impact? There is a follow-on question from Fran that I'm going to defer because we actually have Scott Carlson from Schneider Tree coming to speak in March. And his talk is going to be specifically focused on replanting, like just how do we repair our relationship with trees after Helene, because it did have such a huge, you know, destructive impact specifically here in Greenville. But I love this question. What impact will that have on the small native plants of the undergrowth, and what should we be doing to mitigate the impact since those trees came down?
Well, thank you for that question. For the last months since the hurricane, I've been riding up to Cassie Gorgeous, riding all the roads up there, shooting tree track. I've been all up through there, looking at the 30-inch trees snap half in two for as far as you can see. You know, but the thing about native plants, they are resilient. They will come back. They don't need our help. They don't need our help at all. You know, there's nothing we can do with that. And because as soon as natural disasters and things like this happen, plants always, you open up the canopy, new things will come about. Things that might have been there for decades or a century that had been enclosed by the canopy and couldn't survive. Now that the canopy is open, they'll come back. So it's like a process. And so nature is about a process. It doesn't happen, you know, in the way we think it should. So as these trees go down and let more sunlight to the ground, those communities, those plant communities will change a little bit. And it will take decades for it to enclose and bring those other things back, but they're not going anywhere. They're still there. And so nature is very, very resilient. And what's going to be the fun part is seeing how it does it. And and learning about it. And so I'm looking forward a little bit. And though I'm heartbroken about seeing the trees all down, but I also know that's just part of the cycle, and it's just part of nature. And, you know, and we just have to step back. And again, nature doesn't work in a human scale. It works in a totally different time scale than we think. And so I like to think we're on a time journey. You know, when I drove from Pickens to the Parkway, I tell people you just drove 220 million years in 1 hour. And so I love to talk about time and scale, about plants and plant communities and how change happens. And so what we'll see there is a change, and it's going to be fun looking at it and seeing it and documenting it and finding new things maybe. And just make no mistake about it, we're still finding new species. And we found new species in Pickens County and new ferns and stuff like that. So it never stops, it never ends. Conservation and all of us who are in tune with these type things, we know that nature works in a different way than sometimes we want to think about it.
That is great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rick. We really appreciate you doing this presentation. Thanks for being willing to reschedule, and for everyone who could join us tonight. It's awesome to have you. Hope to see you at a meeting here in Greenville soon. I will respond to the question that just came through in the chat. That's more of a chat-based question I can answer, not specifically for you, Rick. So I'll get an answer out to that. But thank you all for joining us. Everyone have a great night.
I got one more thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather, for being our
Yeah,
friend.
for sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah,
All
thanks.
right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.